Hello, hello, hello. Greetings from Bulawayo. My name is Tariro, neGitare. We're coming to you live from the Oasis studio. Welcome to Magitare Live. If this is your first time, please hit the like button, share, because we're about to have an amazing time together. If you want to know about everything creative, this is the space where we celebrate all the artists, the finest of the finest Zimbabwean creators. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Tonight we're switching things up a little bit. For those of you who know about Magitare Live and the acoustic night, one of the key elements of it is poets. And this is one of the platforms that celebrates the different poets that we have around Zimbabwe. But before we do that, we also want to thank our sponsors, the US Embassy. Thank you so much for believing in the arts, and thank you so much for allowing this platform to happen. Allow me to introduce you to the ladies that I have tonight. We have the amazing Michelle Moyo. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you so much. It's such an honor.
Thank you. And we also have Thando Sibanda, who's with us.
Really glad to be here. Quite
Nice
honored.
to have you.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd have you both, just so we talk about all things poetry. I fell in love with the videos that I was sent about, and I thought, wow, we are sitting on such gold. Maybe Michelle, do you want to share a bit about the arts industry or the poetry scene in Bulawayo?
Oh, okay. So, when I started my poetry, I actually didn't know that there were slams in particular. So that's how I got introduced to poetry. And slamming is all I've known for for a couple of years now. So it started as slams, and I think the biggest poetry events in Bulawayo are the slams, where people compete, and yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah. And Thando, anything else you want to share about
Yeah,
the
I
scene?
think she's right. My journey with poetry also again began with the slams, and then it grew into performing at the festivals, and then you have the BAAs. They have a whole category for poetry, and they have built small communities of poets that have been trying to just come together and do collaborations and just keep on putting the work. So it's been slams, festivals, and in the small communities.
I feel like poetry is a lot of work. Like you have to know what you're saying. You have to know the right words. You need to make it, poetic. It needs to be rhythmic. Why did you both decide to choose poetry?
Well, because poetry is not confining in any way. And yeah, there is the rhythm that's there in it, but it's not something that would require a lot of vibe that's attached to it, like music. And poetry is really a good way of expressing yourself. Poetry is a good way of like healing. Poetry can be therapy. It can be so many different things that could really complete you as a human being. Not only that, but help you share other people's stories and your own stories that other people around you can relate to. So it can be a form of conversation, but like on so many different levels, spiritually, on the physical realm, and just like a basic mundane conversation that you can have with your friends, your workmates. It can be so many different things. And yeah, that's why I went for poetry.
Listen to you sounding all poetic already. And Michelle, what was that the case for you as well?
In a way, but for me, it was a transition from high school where I was doing public speaking and I needed something to keep on speaking. And when I finally started doing poetry, I fell in love with it so much, to the point where I'm not a person who actually lets out and cries, but when I'm angry, I turn to writing. I've realized that my best poems are written when I'm angry or when I'm sad. So I've found it as a mechanism of sorts. So instead of crying, okay, let me just, jot something down to express how I'm feeling. So yeah, so poetry has been a form of therapy for me.
Lovely, lovely. Thando, there's a poem of yours that I fell in love with about lies and deceit. And it really struck me because a lot of the world that we live in is a lot of lies and deceit. Tell me about the thought process behind that and why you felt it was important for you to speak about that sort of topic.
Yeah, so when I wrote the poem, before the poem, I had a conversation with another fellow poet who was part of a poetry community called Random Poets. He says, let's do something under the same naked. So I'm like, there's a lot of things that we hide underneath our clothes. So if you were to be stripped naked for a day, what would it look like? and not only being stripped naked in like the literal sense, but also there's a lot of things that people will do behind closed doors, behind the curtains. Like it could be about the way you look, your skin color, the way you talk, in every sense really, and in every aspect of our lives. So the thought process was just imagining if a lot of us were to be stripped naked in front of a crowd of people for just a day, what would it look like?
That's interesting. Now I'm going to strip you naked and ask you to to share maybe one of your pieces with us.
Right, so this piece is called Who. It's just a story of some woman that lives somewhere at the back of my head. Right. Who gave you permission to play God? To decide how much of my body to cover up and how much of myself to give? Who named you author and finisher of my fate? That the blood that runs in my veins and the air that circulates in my lungs is governed by you. How dare you dictate my every move? How my hips should move? How many times they should sway in one go in the direction in which the wind should blow? You have become the bane in my existence and man. Do I despise you?
Yeah. So we don't clap in poetry. We click our fingers. We snap. That's amazing. You know, I wish I could write like that. I wish I could be so eloquent. I think I'm sure I'll be deemed more intelligent. Tell me, what do you read a lot? What's the process that makes you come to the stage where you're very eloquent?
Funny enough, I don't really read a lot, and outside of poetry, I'm not this eloquent or articulate either. But it has a lot to do with my experiences and how I relate to things and people on different levels. Sometimes inspiration comes from looking at a tree and how it functions. Sometimes it comes from a conversation I could be having with you right now. Sometimes, well, most of it comes from how I'm feeling, how certain things make me feel. Could be angry, really ever happy, but sometimes happy. And one of my greatest pieces that have been really personal and like spiritual have been inspired by songs. So music has also played like a really big role in my poetry. So it's just a lot of different things that are happening around me and in the world in general.
I suppose that's where the gift is, right? You can see something and then you articulate that thing. Wow. Michelle, what are some of the challenges that you faced in the industry?
I think the fact that poetry is not as recognized, I'd like to think. Most people don't really take it seriously. So when you approach them like, you have an event, oh, you're singing, do you mind if I come do my poetry? And most of the time, no, people don't really like to concentrate and start analyzing what you're saying. So I think that has been, for me, has been the biggest challenge. So you only get like weddings where people actually want that lovey-dovey, lovey-dovey stuff. But poetry not being recognized has,
Would I like to take this moment to recognize the poets in the house? Thank you, Magitare Trust, for allowing us to have such amazing talent. And maybe you'd also like to share one piece with us?
Sure, yeah. Okay, so this piece has probably been overdone by me, but it's my favorite.
There's nothing like that.
You still want to hear?
Yeah, like
You say this feeling you call love is supposed to give joy and thumping heartbeats. The feeling of butterflies inside our stomachs sending shivers down our spines. But who told you to call it love? In a world that is constantly spinning with catastrophe, turmoil, and bodies endowed with kinky hair were then said to be dirty because of the color of their skin. What if the thumping heartbeats were just a warning of the imminent danger that the opposite sex brings? What if the butterflies in our stomachs were just an alert to the brain that the body needs food? But you are so fooled to think that every foreign emotion you feel inside towards the opposite sex must be love, the shattering knees, head shaking, buzz chill. A slow but sure process to insanity. And you, a patient to this fallacy called love, a feeling said to be produced in the heart, and it, poor heart, a simple organ designed to pump blood to keep us moving. Love, a lie used by the world to psychologically trick us into the lifestyle we grew up to as kids. Namhla yim umama. Now tell me, how much love is this fist-sized heart expected to carry when you were going around dating everyone?
Wow. Ain't that something? I know, right? Come on now. No, I'm really excited, and I'm curious to see where both of you will end up. Any chances we'll be having you writing books or having your poetry published?
Yeah, definitely. I do have an anthology that's stashed somewhere in my archives, but I'm really hoping to refine it soon. I'm not happy with it as yet, but once it's ready, yeah, you'll definitely get some of it.
Lovely. We stay hopeful and hope 2022 is the year that we're going to be launching all these lovely, published works of yours. So, what are the plans for 2022? And what can people expect from Michelle and Thando?
Oh, well, for me, I was thinking about, like Michelle was saying, that a lot of people aren't really interested in poetry because it requires a certain level of focus and concentration and really understanding of what the poet's trying to bring about. So I've been really looking into collaborating with other forms of art, doing it with a bit of music, doing it with a bit of dance and theatre. I've already sampled it out a couple of times late last year. So I recently launched a film again. It's called Echoes. It's just a short poetry-based film. So I'm really trying to explore more of that avenue, and more music, more dance infused with poetry.
Lovely. And for you, Michelle?
Well, for me, I recently started podcasting, so I've been trying to find a way where I can fuse that just basic conversations with poetry, and perhaps eventually have like an EP, because I've always thought my poetry sounds better when I say it out, when I recite it, instead of someone reading. They don't exactly read it the same way I would have written it and kind of expressed myself on paper. So, yeah, just that.
That's exciting. Any other artists that, particularly poets, locally and internationally, that you look up to?
Yes, I look up to Dana Gilmore and Jackie Hill Perry. I absolutely love.
She's my favorite too.
Oh, she's amazing. She's amazing.
Yeah, I also love the whole crew of Poets in Autumn. And I like Kollega Putuma from South Africa. I definitely look up to her. And locally, I really love Batsarai Chikama. I love
Shout out to you,
Tinashe. Tinashe Tafrengika has also been amazing.
yes. Oh.
Yeah, and Pilani. Like a lot of them, really. They're really
there's
inspiring.
Dilla as well.
And Dilla, she's
ooh,
doing amazing
she's
things.
amazing.
So yeah, a lot of poets are really doing great things, and we look up to them.
That's awesome. We're excited to tell you that the Acoustic Night is launching in Bulawayo, and that will be happening at the Oasis every month. So you look out for a lot more of these amazing poets at that platform where people can sit and concentrate and actually listen and click fingers and snap. So we're really looking forward to that. Thank you so much for joining us on Magitare Live. We look forward to seeing your beautiful faces and hearing this amazing poetry more often. Don't go away. The ladies are still here and they're going to be performing some more pieces for you this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay tuned.
Hold my hand. Oh, baby, it's a long way down to the bottom of the river. Hold my hand. Oh, baby, it's a long way down. Long way down. My father mastered the art of turning into a boomerang. Appeared every few years to check on me like a stash of drugs he'd hidden. His presence, dripping with entitlement, oozing with promises of what a great relationship would have from then on. That he was back for good this time. That his gifts, usually a bunch of bananas, were meant to mush in to repair the relationship he broke. But I'd always hated bananas. They left a bitter taste in my mouth. Disappointing for a bright-colored fruit. But then again, they were exactly like the buyer, disappointing for a handsome man. My father was a rolling stone turned landslide, folded when you needed him most, because apparently his hands were tied above multiple women's beds, trying to be the next father of the nation, and burning every forest of trust I'd ever had in a man. Now you see me as an angry and bitter person. Hell, I am on fire. Every confidence, every ounce of confidence ripped out of my very being. You find me uttering statements like, I am sorry I could never be woman enough for you. I am sorry that my romance is not draped in submission. My love only fires insults. My tongue only knows how to cuss. Never professions of undying desire to cradle species like my father or let them suckle like their mother's breasts were not enough. My father was a rolling stone, but I have stayed stone. With an iron fist, God has kneaded me from the womb with all his splendor. If ever a soul was more starved, he saw that I was worth feeding. If ever a mind was more polluted, he saw I was worth cleaning. And I will never stop believing and forgiving. So I sing softer now. Hold my hand. Oh, Father, it's a long way down to the bottom of the river.
I am born of the African soil. I originate from the southern parts of the motherland, so I breathe dust. I breathe fire. I breathe flames of fire because see where we come from, we dine with the sun. We've never really danced with the stars because they're often accompanied by our greatest fears. Darkness. Sight can carry us very far into the darkness. See, the color of our skin camouflages us perfectly into the darkness, and so we often don't reflect. Not being able to see ourselves and not knowing if other people can see us is crippling. Sight can't carry us very far into the darkness, so we can't count on our breathing because that too could get us killed. So here goes my story. The heavens summoned the seed to my bear's fertile lands way before I could meet him, leaving behind one fetus, a lonely heart, and 1,000 stereotypes and battles to fight. She is the epitome of what you call imbogoto, and yes, my mother has sought the skies without wings. She has carried this earth on her back, and that's why it rumbles in agreement each time she calls it heavy, and yet she has never uttered the words, I am tired, or I quit. 4 mouths to feed, to shelter, to clothe, to educate. So yes, she too became victim to this broken system. See where we come from, the land that gave birth to us is ruled by cruel beings that sought their souls for bills, cruel beings that dry the lands and strip us, the laborers of little we can harvest. They choke us and leave us gasping for air. If the waters were still flowing like they used to, I swear, they'd be drowning us too. They cripple us every single day and make us fight battles we never signed up for. These human beings have normalized lies and poverty. I mean, there's really no need for 3 meals a day if I can have 2, right? And why get a new pair of shoes if I can still fit in all the big toes in these ones? Right? Damn right, we're hungry. Damn right, we're thirsty. Our hearts yearn for lands that are not barren. Our souls yearn for pastures that are green. So yes, my mother relocated to foreign lands in pursuit of all this. She did so in the hope to find refuge. But little did she know, she was signing herself up for a different kind of battle. Those people have the same skin color as her, but because they roll their tongue a little differently when they speak, and their land is a little damper, the system declares that they are not her own, even though our ancestors are probably siblings. It demands that she get licensing to labor in these fields, and then slams the stars in her face, making it impossible to do things their way. It's not like she can afford to anyways. It dictates that they treat her differently and turn this whole thing into a monopoly game when all she wants to do is work hard and feed her family. It says that everything she's worked hard for and earned, she's not entitled to. It is a fruit of their land. They want her off their land. They say that everything she's worked hard for, she cannot claim because it is theirs. They call her thief. Paint her with the same brush they used to paint a ruthless murderer. They drench her hands in blood she knows nothing about. She is called corrupt. She is called intruder. She is called gwere gwere, an undeserving piece of trash unfit to occupy these lands. Twitter prefers a hungry, desperate criminal who should evacuate immediately. If she cannot find refuge amongst people that look like her, if she cannot find refuge amongst her brothers and sisters, what becomes of her? What becomes of her children? And their children's children? See, where we come from, poverty has burnt down buildings. The struggles are real. They dug holes in our fields. The rains are overwhelmed by the dryness of our soils. There isn't anything to hope for. There isn't anything to work on. The sun doesn't shine the same way it used to. The dust doesn't rise no matter how hard we stomp our feet. So yes, my mother doesn't want to be here. She doesn't want to make you her choice. She doesn't want to suffocate you. But looking back is as good as death. Not only for her, but her children too. And their children's children. Yes, my mother is the alleged illegal immigrant whose only wish is to feed her children 3 times a day and gift them with shoes that can carry their feet.
Thank you so much for tuning into Magitare Live, and a big thank you to the artists for sharing their gifts with us. Be sure to join us next week for another exciting episode of Magitare Live. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. It's Magitare Africa.